Hey guys, so today we've got my final 2021 NHL mock draft, with the NHL draft being a week away from now. So just a few days ago, I did post my 2021 final NHL draft rankings, and the link to that will be in the description below. And that is just my rankings, so not based on a team, it's just my personal rankings for who I think are the top 40 prospects for this class. So that is a little bit different from this mock draft, as this is more, along with my personal opinion, this is more based on who I think the teams will pick and who fits within the team needs. So obviously the order will be a little different, but let's get started here. So starting off with Buffalo, I actually just forgot to mention there are trades in this one. So as you can see, the order is a bit messed up here. That's because of trades, which I'll explain once we get to that pick. So starting off with Buffalo at 1, I've been taking William Eklund. And I think that William Eklund's ceiling is an elite puck-moving #1 center. And I think that his comparison is Sebastian Aho or Gabriel Landeskog. He's very good offensively. He put up amazing numbers playing in the SHL with Alexander Holtz and Detroit Gardens. He had 23 points in 40 games. So I think he has that elite potential. And he does have a lower floor of some other guys. And although Owen Power is pretty much the consensus #1, he is extremely overrated. And I think that Buffalo's not going to take him. I think Eklund is by far the front runner at this point for Buffalo, and I think this is the best pick for them. Moving on to #2, we've got Seattle, and I've been taking Brandt Clarke, who is, in my opinion, the best prospect in this class. This past year, he put up 15 points in 26 games in Slovakia, the top men's league there since the OHL was canceled, and I think he does have a really high ceiling as an elite puck-moving #1 defenseman. I would compare him to John Klingberg and Shea Theodore, as he's average-sized defenseman, but more offensively minded. Probably going to be more of an offensive defenseman, but he's also solid defensively. So it could end up being a two-way defenseman, as he's very good at defense. He has a great transition game, and also one of the smartest players in this class. Great with the puck, and I think will be an excellent D-man on the first power play unit for Seattle. He has the potential to be a Norris-winning defenseman, and I think he is a great pick for Seattle as they're starting the new franchise. I think bringing in Brandt Clarke, who does need a little bit more development, he can probably come in and he will be the most important player on this team. So Seattle will be able to develop him properly, and he has the potential to become elite #1 center. Whereas a guy like Matthew Beniers has a very high floor but has a lower ceiling. Moving on to #3, we have Anaheim, and I do have him taking Owen Power. Although I dislike Power and I think he's overrated, and honestly I don't think this would really be the best pick for Anaheim. I think if he is still available at 3, Anaheim will jump at the chance to get him here to be the first pairing defenseman playing with Jamie Drysdale. Now, Owen Power is a massive 6'6" defenseman who played with the stacked Michigan team in the NCAA last year, putting up 16 points in 26 games as a left-handed defenseman. And I think that his ceiling is probably a good #2 defenseman who is solid two-way and really big. And he kind of compares to a guy like Victor Hedman, but a lot worse in most areas. But I think overall, at this position, Anaheim would probably pick either Owen Power or Dylan Guenther. Moving on to #4, we have the New Jersey Devils, and I think they're going to be taking Jack Hughes' brother, Luke Hughes. So they're going to be taking Luke here, and if he's available, I think they have to take him. Reunite two of the Hughes brothers. Maybe Quinn can come in free agency in a few years. But Luke Hughes has arguably the highest ceiling in this class. It's close between Clarke for the highest ceiling for a defenseman, and I think he can be, like Brandt Clarke, an elite puck-moving defenseman, but he is not as good as Clarke defensively, but he is a very good offensively, and very similar to Quinn. He sucks at defense, but is elite offensively, has the potential to even be a point-per-game defenseman, can be elite, but at the same time has a very lower floor, or a bit riskier because he's not as good defensively. and he has a lot of things he needs to work on, but he's still an elite skater. That's probably his biggest asset. So I think he could be big for the Devils, who are in need of an elite number one defenseman, and they probably are going to lose a defenseman in the expansion draft. So I think bringing in Hughes, he's still a couple years away from the NHL, but I think he can be at least a solid first pairing guy for them. Moving on to 5, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they're taking Matthew Beniers. Even though they're going to trade Seth Jones, who sucks, and they're going to get an awesome haul for him. The team that gets him is going to heavily overpay, as Seth Jones is really just a lower and second pairing defenseman. I don't think they take a defenseman with this pick. They're going to be taking Matthew Beniers. He has the highest floor in this class by far. Owen Power also has a high floor, but Beniers is, I think his floor is a third line shutdown center, which is really good. But his ceiling is a 1B two-way center. He's probably just made second line center, so a first line center on many NHL teams, but on a championship team, he would be a second line center. So lower ceiling, but still a really high floor, and kind of like an Anthony Cirelli type player, but maybe a little better offensively, as he's really good two-way player, and I think he is NHL ready, even though he's probably going to return to Michigan with Owen Power, and Luke Hughes is also going to be at Michigan. I do think that Beniers could be playing in the NHL this year. Next up at 6, we have the Red Wings, and they're going to be taking Kent Johnson. I think that the Red Wings are going to take one of 3 players: Kent Johnson, Jesper Wallstedt, or Fabian Lysell. And also, I mean, if like Eklund or Clark is available, they take one of them. But Kent Johnson should be really high on their draft board, ahead of a guy like Owen Power and even Matthew Beniers. He is a center, but he is going to be a winger in the NHL, as he just plays a lot more like a winger. This past year, he had 27 points in 26 games with the University of Michigan, and I think he can be a really good left wing, playing next to Larkin, and maybe playing on the wing opposite of Lucas Raymond in Detroit. He has elite potential, definitely the highest ceiling for a forward, and I kind of see him as a Kane light. He's an elite offensive, driving 1C as a ceiling. Again, though, he could be a bust, as he has a lower floor, a bit raw, and still a couple years away from the NHL. Moving on to 7, we have the Sharks, and they're taking Jesper Wallstedt. He's the best goalie prospect we've seen since Carey Price. Can be just as good as Vasilevsky, and Hellebuyck is one of the top goalies in the league. I think he will end up winning a Vezina one day. And although he is, I think, by far the best player in this class, as these guys are really true elite prospects, Wallstedt is a franchise goaltender. He's a generational type goaltender, even better than Spencer Knight and Yaroslav Askarov. And I think with the situation San Jose is in, they haven't really started their rebuild, but I think they do need to. They don't have really many prospects at all, but I think bringing in Wallstedt, who can become their elite goalie in 4 or 5 years, would be really beneficial, as once they're done rebuilding, Wallstedt would be NHL ready and ready to be their elite goalie so they can make a playoff run. At 8, we have the Buffalo Sabres again, and this is originally the LA Kings pick, but I think that the Kings are going to trade for one of 2 players from Buffalo. They're either going to get Jack Eichel or Sam Reinhart, and in both of those deals, they're going to deal this pick. If they're trading for Sam Reinhart, they'll just trade this pick straight up 1-for-1, 8th overall for Sam Reinhart. But if he's not available, or I think they could just move this in a package for Jack Eichel. So with this pick, I think Buffalo is going to be taking Dylan Guenther. I think Guenther is the guy that I really could see him playing with Buffalo. He is a really good winger, and last year, playing in the WHL, he put up 24 points in 12 games. So leading the WHL in points, 2 points a game. He had 12 goals, and he is arguably this draft class's best shooter. He's an elite scorer, but I think the thing is he needs that elite center. So I think that's why I think a team like Anaheim could pick him up, as he will have Zegras as their center. He's a scorer who does need a center, and I think Eklund can be that in Buffalo. So you put Guenther on Eklund's wing. I think that can be a very, very good pairing in Buffalo, along with Dahlin on D, and they are probably going to get someone. So if they trade Reinhart away, then, I mean, even if they trade Eichel, they're going to get an elite player. And I think that is likely that they get either Turcotte or Byfield. They're going to have to get one of them in an equal deal. Next up at 9, we have the Vancouver Canucks, and they're taking Fabien Lysell. He's a really interesting prospect who I honestly could see going in the top 5, but he also could go outside of the top 10. Fabien Lysell put up 3 points, so 2 goals and 1 assist in 26 games with Luleå in the SHL, same team as Wallstead. And the main thing with him is he is puts in a lot of energy, really fast guy, and I think he has a really high ceiling to be a solid top 6 player in Vancouver. But he is still a couple years away, probably going to spend that time in the SHL. But I think with Vancouver, they're just going with the best player available here, which is Lysell. Next up, we have Ottawa, and there are a few ways they could go here. They could take Simone Edmondson, but they already have Jake Sanderson on D, who they took 5th overall, which I do not like that pick. But then they also have Thomas Chabot and Eric Branson. They don't need another defenseman. They're taking Cole Sillinger, who I do have ranked ahead of Edmondson. I do think he's better. But last year he put up 46 points in 31 games with Sioux Falls Stampede in the USHL as a center. So he's great offensively. I think him and Gunther have the 2 best shots in this class. So 2 great shooters, and I think Sillinger has 30-goal potential playing in Ottawa. Now, next up at 11, we have Columbus's pick. And this pick was originally actually Philly's. So I think that Seth Jones is going to get traded from Columbus to Philadelphia for that 13th overall pick, along with Morgan Frost and maybe something else, which would be a really bad trade for Philly, as Seth Jones is really a second pairing defenseman at best, but they perceive him as an overall pick is originally Chicago's. But this is going to Columbus, as there are a couple of trades going on here. I think that, so Columbus will have the 13th overall pick, but they see what happens in the top 10. I think that they're going to try to get Simone Edmondson here at 11th overall. They want that defenseman. He's compared to Seth Jones. They're getting the next Seth Jones here, which is not a good thing. I think he is the most overrated player in this class, even more than Owen Power, I would say. But he is, I think, a borderline top 15 prospect in this class. He is probably going to go top 12, though, maybe even top 10, because most people view him as a top 10 prospect and a really good defenseman. I just don't see how people see him as in the same class as Brant Clark and Luke Hughes and even Owen Power. He is just not that good. This past year in the SHL, Simone Edmondson put up only 1 assist in 10 games. With Frölunda, it is the SHL. He mostly played in the U20 league, but still, he is big. Same thing with Power, and that is the reason why most people view him really high. He's 6'4", 6'5", so he has its size, and his main defensive tactic is just pushing guys off the puck. Also, another bit, and that probably won't work in the NHL, I think a lot of his game doesn't translate, and he is terrible at decision making with the puck, which will kill him, as to be a number 1 defenseman, you have to be able to carry the puck and make good decisions. So I'd say his ceiling is a number 2 defenseman, and he could easily be a bust. He's very boomer bust, and really, again, I think he's, much like Seth Jones, really, his actual ceiling is a second pairing defenseman. I just don't really see him working out, though, as I think that he will probably be like a third pairing guy. He just won't be able to be more of a depth guy who brings size to the table. At 12, we have Calgary, and they're taking Chaz Lucius. Him, Gunther, and Sillinger are the 3 best shooters. He was in the USDP. He was injured, but I think Calgary's going to take a shot at him. At 13, we've got Chicago. They're taking Xavier Bourgault, one of the most underrated players in this class. He put up great numbers this past year playing in the QMJHL. So the QMJHL season did actually happen this year, and Bourgault did put up 40 points in 29 games, 20 goals, 20 assists with the Shawinigan Cataracts as a center. So I think he can be a very solid top 6 center who will be very good on the power play. Moving on to 14, we have Dallas, and they're taking Mason McTavish. He's one of the more hyped up prospects recently after having a great U18s this past year. I don't think that he is a top 10 prospect, but I think Dallas is going to take a shot at him here to be a solid middle 6 center. And finally, to round up the top 15, we have the Rangers, and they're taking Logan Stankoven, who is the biggest riser in my mock draft. He last went to Vegas at 29. I have him rising into the top 15 as he is a really good player. He's 5'8", he's undersized, which is the main reason why he is kind of low on people's mock drafts. But he did put up 10 points in 6 games with Kamloops in the WHL. So, in a small sample size, did really well. He's a great offensive player with top 6 potential, so I think it's worth the risk as a winger for the Rangers. Now, moving into 16th overall here, we have the St. Louis Blues, and they're taking Carson Lambos. They're going to lose Vince Dunn in the draft. That is for certain. I have some insider knowledge, and they are. Vince Dunn's not coming back. Either goes in the expansion route to Seattle, or I think he'll get traded to either Calgary or Philly. So I think they're going to draft a defenseman to replace him in Carson Lambos. Next up, we have the Jets at 17, and they're going to be taking Corson Coolman. He has to take a defenseman at this point. Coolman is the best one available at this point. Next up at 18 with the Preds, and they're taking Zachary Leroux. And I do think that he is a great player. 39 points, 33 games. Halifax. He's more of a power forward, although he's small, and I think he has middle six center potential on a rebuilding Preds team. At 19, we have the Oilers, and they're taking Sebastian Cossa. I think he has the potential to be an elite goalie. Edmonton needs a goalie right now, and although Cossa is still 4 or 5 years away from actually being a legit starting goalie, I think Edmonton could either trade for a guy like Darcy Kemper or Elvis Merzlikins to be their starter for the next few years before Cossa is ready to come up, or just sign someone in free agency. They do need a goalie for the short term, but I think Cossa is their long-term solution here. He's an amazing goalie, and one of the best Canadian goalies, probably since Carter Hart, as he is really good. I think he will be a first-round pick. Was immaculate in the WHL this past year, and he had a .941 save percentage, 1.57 goals against average, 19 games in the WHL playing for the Edmonton Oil Kings. So that is just spectacular, and I think Edmonton's going to take him here at 19. Next up at 20, we have Boston, and they're taking Simone Robertson. I think that he's going to go in the 20 to 30 range, and he put up 2 points in 22 games in the SHL. So I think Boston's going to bring in another right wing here who has middle six potential. At 21, we have the Wild, and they are taking Fyodor Svechkov. I think he will be a first-round pick this year, and he has risen up a lot. He played in the NHL this past year, and Svechkov put up a point per game, 15 points in 15 games. So it is the NHL. I think it's the second league in Russia, so the AHL basically of Russia. Still, point per game is really good for Svechkov. Or actually, the MHL, I think, is the ECHL's third league. It's the junior league there. But, I mean, a point per game is still awesome. And I think that he can be a great winger playing for Minnesota. At 22, we have the Detroit Red Wings. And I think Steve Yzerman is going to take a pick that might surprise some people here in Matthew Samoskevich. So it's their second pick in this first round. Matthew Samoskevich is he's a center who played with the Chicago Steel in the USHL. He put up just over a point per game, so really good numbers in the USHL, and I think he has a middle six potential as a winger in Detroit. At 23, we have Columbus' third first-round pick out of 4 total picks, and I think they're going to go with Matthew Coronado here. He has fallen a bit since my last mock draft, but I don't think any other team really would take him here, and Coronado is still an excellent player who put up 85 points in 51 games with the Chicago Steel in the USHL. And although he did put up better numbers than Samoskevich this past year, I do think that I'm playing on the same team. He put up 48 goals. But I think Yzerman is going to take a more surprising pick here, and he could end up turning out better. But Coronado, I think this is a steal at 23. Next up at 24, we have who I think is by far the most underrated prospect in this class, in Olin Zellweger. He is an amazing defenseman. He's only 5'8" or 5'9", so he is really small, especially for a defenseman. And usually you don't take a defenseman too high that is undersized unless you're like Cale Makar or Jamie Drysdale. Zellweger's not that level, but I think he has an insanely high ceiling. He has the third highest ceiling amongst defensemen in this class behind Brant Clark and Luke Hughes. He has a higher ceiling than Owen Power. And although he's a lower floor, a bit of a riskier pick, I think that this can pay off big time for Minnesota, becoming at least a top four defenseman. He does have first pairing potential, is great at moving the puck, an elite skater as well. And he put up over 9 points in 7 games with the Everett Silvertips in the WHL, or actually not 7 games. So yeah, Zellweger put up 13 points in 11 games, and I think that he can be a really good offensive defenseman. At 25, we have our final trade, and Jersey is trading up from 28 to 25. So they're going to move up a little bit. Florida's moving down, but they have moved up to get Atu Ratti. They have Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. They're 1 and 2 centers for the next 10-15 years. But I think they're going to bring in Ratti to solidify their top 9 for centers. I think that he will be a great middle 6 center. And although he sucked this year, he wasn't that good. And he's fallen a lot, was supposed to go first overall. He does have a really high floor. He's a lower ceiling. His ceiling is more of a second liner. But I think it's likely that he does become a solid two-way third line center. He's solid defensively. And I think that he could be a great shutdown guy behind Hughes and Hischier for the Devils as their number 3 center. Next up at 26, we have the Canes, and they're taking Daniil Shaka. In the KHL with CSK Moscow, he put up 2 points in 11 games. He was playing in the KHL, though, so it's the top league as a defenseman. That is pretty good. I think he will be a first-round pick, and especially if Dougie Hamilton leaves in free agency. I think Carolina's going to take a defenseman here because there's a risk of Dougie Hamilton going. They have Slavin, but all of a sudden their defense is kind of depleted. With guys like Brady Shea and Jake Gardner not just as good as when they first came to Carolina. And overall, I think they could use another top 4 defense prospect. At 27, we have the Avs, and they're taking Stanislav Svozil. So pretty much interchangeable with Chayka. He could end up going to Carolina, but Colorado, I think, could end up taking Svozil here. Although I think that they could take 4. They're just taking, in my opinion, the best player available, which is Svozil for Colorado. At 28, we've got Florida, and they're taking Brennan Ottman. So even though they trade down, I think that Ottman is like just as good as Ratti. Could be even better. It's just that New Jersey wants Ratti. I think they might be scared that Colorado or Carolina, especially Colorado, takes him. So they want to trade up. But I think this would be a great deal for Florida as they get a great player in Brennan Ottman. At 29, we have got Vegas, and they're taking Francesco Pinelli. Centers were their biggest problem, and probably the biggest reason why they lost to Montreal in the conference finals. Pinelli's a center. I think he has top 6 potential, but I think still it will be a solid middle 6 center for Vegas, helping them pick with their center situation. With the second last pick, we have Montreal, and they're taking Nikita Chibrikov. He is a winger, plays both wing positions, and he is coming out of Russia. This past year, Nikita Chibrikov put up 2 points in 16 games with SK St. Petersburg in the KHL. He brings that versatility playing 2 leagues. He played in the KHL, which is great, and I think Montreal could add another future top middle 6 winger. Finally, with the last pick in the draft, we have Columbus' 4th and final pick. This is coming from Tampa's pick from the David Savard trade, and they're taking Isaac Rosen. I think they're really just going for the best player available here at this point. And although they could take a defenseman, as they've taken 3 forwards already, or 2 forwards, I think they're going to go 3 forwards plus Edmondson here and take Isaac Rosen. So there is my final mock draft, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, remember to leave a like and subscribe. The draft is in a week, so we'll see how much I actually get right from this. But comment down below what you think. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.